My man is here, so I want to go to my man. I don't want to have him waiting. Carl Ja, what's happening, my man? How you doing this morning? Well,
How are you,
this
sir?
evening for us. Right.
Good
Yeah,
evening. Good
we're in
evening,
the same
sir.
time zone, so yeah, this evening
You're
for us.
you're working
Yeah,
hard. I see you. Putting on the show every night, man. Uh,
I try.
respect,
I try, man.
respect.
I mean, it's kind of like the radio show. I guess I looked at it like
Yeah,
that. Like it's 7 to 10,
yeah.
and it's not my audience fault that I decide to go gallivant the world. So I don't want to change it. Also, it wouldn't even make sense to change
Consistency
it.
is good.
Yeah. So yes, I bust my ass from probably around 3 to 7 to get prepared. Then after 10, I have to cut the videos. I usually finish around 3 in the morning. Sleep in and repeat the process. So, how are you doing? You doing okay?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
You told me it was chilly in Bali, and I was like, we have a different temperature. It's like 90 degrees every day here.
Well, it's cool. It's cool because for me, if I have to put a blanket on at night, that's too cold for me. I mean, like right now, if I walk around barefoot in my house and that my feet feels cold, that is too cold for me.
It has been like 90 degrees every day since I've been here, with the exception of when it rains. But every other day has been like blistering.
Bali is beautiful. Where are you? Are you in KL?
Yeah, I'm in Kuala Lumpur.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
I think what happened is the monsoon makes like a circular pattern in South China Sea. Like so when you people like on the continental part of the Southeast Asia gets hot and humid, that's when we're cooling off, and then it's reverse. Like our weather patterns are reversed.
It's
Yeah.
like when you people get cool and humid. That's funny. And just so the people, oh, which one? Your stereo mic. Yeah, they stereo mic. I don't know which one it is. I think it's this one. All right. So just so people know, as if they don't at this point, Carl Ja, he is host of Silk and Steel podcast focused on China, surrounding regions, and their history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Ja. You can follow his podcast on Twitter at Steel Silk In. And of course, you can subscribe to the podcast at patreon.com/silk letter N Steel. Definitely check Carl out if you especially enjoy historical context. 5,000 years of Chinese history. Oh, Jesus, that is a hell of a undertaking. But you can imagine your catalog is going to be gorgeous when you finish that.
It will be 20 years maybe. I'm still at like 316 BC. But we'll get
are you
there.
serious? That's where you're
Yeah,
at?
I just passed the death of Alexander the Great, man. So we'll still have ways to go.
It's okay. As long as your body hold up, you'll be 60 years old, still having something specific to do. Because look, I will tell you this, and I'm sorry, just for chatting with the audience. I'll get to the main subject in a moment. It is very difficult when you don't know what to talk about. And I find myself constantly not knowing what to hit. Like I end up in this position of like, okay, I've just won over 100 stories. Which one is more important? Which one does the audience want to know? Which one do I care about? And then kind of at the last minute, it's like, okay, I'm going to choose this. It's a grab bag. I don't know. In your case, at the very least, you say, all right, 32 BC. Just move to the next year. No, man, that's very cool. I want to start with this. And I guess we could piggyback these two things together because I think these two things are related to one another. Sure. You have this, EU preparing sanctions against China for alleged drone parts supplied to Russia. I would imagine Xi Jinping is saying, who the F are you? We're sovereign. It's like, I'm a grown-ass man. What are you talking about? It's like, hey, you going somewhere? I'm a grown-ass man. What are you talking about? China can do whatever it wants. China can give parts to whoever it wants. The United States has been giving billions and billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to try to defeat Russia. The idea that they're going to be like, we don't like the fact that you're giving them parts, potentially, because we don't really know, because you guys have a border. But we think you are. And so we're going to, wrap you on the knuckles with your tiny, dwindling economy? Okay, we're terrified. The other one with this that I want to piggyback this on is the deal that Donald Trump made with the European Union. Because what I strongly suspect is that what Trump was doing when he was trying to go to get other countries and trying to make deals with them is to try to isolate China, to say, okay, we'll make a deal with you, but we need to isolate China. So we need you to stop making your deals with China if you're going to deal with us, effectively trying to bifurcate the world. At least that was the original reporting that was taking place. And considering what he's trying to do with Russia right now, I would imagine that may be also this kind of part of the strategy. I don't think it's coincident that these things effectively came together. The European Union getting bent over in a rough what do they call it? Practicological examination by Trump. And then you get the European Union putting out this. Give me a take on this. I mean, does it matter? Does China care about the European Union in this sense? But what are your thoughts?
Well, I think China would like for Europe to achieve true strategic autonomy. I mean, China had been encouraging the European leaders to grow a backbone for decades, but that hasn't happened yet. For a while, it looks like there might even be a soft rapprochement between China and EU when EU sent von der Leyen to Beijing to meet with Xi Jinping. That was before the EU-US deal was announced. Now, I absolutely agree with you. US would trying to structure an anti-China trade bloc. But I think we need to separate what the U.S. deep state want and what Trump want. There's definitely a faction in the U.S. government that want to do this. They want to do concoct a grand strategy of containing China by getting other countries to join in on the anti-China trade bloc. In fact, during the trade deal with Japan, the Japanese trade representative specifically said, "We're not going to do that because China is too important for us. We're not going to join any anti-China trade bloc because our relationship with Beijing is way too more important." But EU, I mean, let's face it, EU, there has been institutional capture, right? I mean, look at von der Leyen. What kind of creature is von der Leyen? She is literally being groomed from the Atlantis institution since her youth. And her role was to take over, be Washington's voice in Europe. When Trump says jump, she just goes how high? I mean, if you guys saw that press conference, and von der Leyen was just sitting there very meekly while Trump was saying, "Oh, the Europeans have been unfair to us. There's been so many unfair trade practices. We're sitting here right now. We're making it more balanced." And she just sit there like a meek office lady. And that's her role. That, by the way, that's the role she was put in EU to play, to be the pliant U.S. puppy dog. But there's also other factors come to play because one reason EU can't say no is because they have, unlike China just said no right away. It's like, no, if you're gonna slap us with tariff, we're gonna slap you right back. Let's see who can last till the end. But EU has a lot of dependency on United States. For one thing, for the German automakers, European automakers in particular, U.S. is the world's second largest car market, and the German automaker absolutely needs a U.S. market, especially when they're being outcompeted by the Chinese automaker in the Chinese auto market, because Chinese auto market is actually the world's largest auto market. They sell like 35 million cars every year. Twice the number of United States, but the Germans and Japanese are already losing out in that market against likes of the BYD, like the big Chinese EV giants. So they cannot afford to lose the second biggest car market, which is United States. And Trump did slap the 25% tariff on foreign auto parts and foreign cars, and that's going to hit German, Japanese, Koreans, and so by them negotiating the tariff back down to 15%, a flat 15%, it's better than having a 25% tariff on foreign auto parts. So for them, the tariff actually came down. So this is why they have to kind of play appeasement to U.S. But then again, one of the part of the deal is they promise they're going to plow like hundreds of billions of investment into the United States. Now, it's a commitment. It's like a promise. right? I mean, whether they're going to deliver and how is Trump going to enforce that delivery, that's all up in the air. And this is the same thing with the deal with Japan. Japan said that we're going to put in $550 billion investment in the U.S. And then later, Japanese government said, you know what? Well, it'll be up to the private Japanese companies to decide how they want to invest their money. So it's a promise. It's a promise. It's not concrete. You know, like they can promise and they can promise anything. And their goal was to negotiate their tariff rate down to 15%, so they don't have to pay the 25% tariff on the foreign auto parts. So for them, that is a win. Now, in exchange, you know, of course, they're gonna have to do the U.S. biddings, which means to crank up these rhetorics against China. Now, for drone, I want to emphasize the drone parts they're talking about. They're not military grade drones. Right. There are commercial drone parts, you know, like things like DJI, where people use to take pictures, make videos. Except these drone parts are being imported by both Ukrainians and Russians, and they import them to make their own drones. They're custom drones. And right now, actually, in the Ukrainian battlefield, that's majority of the drones are the custom drones made by Ukraine and Russia, because a lot of the drones provided by United States and NATO turn out to be completely useless. Like there was a U.S. drone. I'm trying to remember the name. It's by the Android company. And anyway, that drone cost $1 million each, because it's this flimsy like DJI ripoff. They're selling for $1 million each. How do we know? Because that's the price tag U.S. is selling to the government of Taiwan. They're selling them about 290 drones, and for each, these are the kamikaze drones. These are not the huge predator drones we're talking about. Those are like, it's like drones like the size of DJI drones, right? And they're selling for $1 million each, because the Taiwan government promised to pay $300 million for 290 those drones. I mean, it's a total ripoff, especially when a lot of their drone parts, the U.S. drone makers that's making these drones of Pentagon, a lot of their drone parts also source from China. So essentially what they did, they buy the Chinese components, they assemble it in United States, put on their brand, and then turn around and sell Pentagon for $1 million each. I mean, it's a scam. It's a scam. It's a grift. And this is why, and those drones have been proven very ineffective in real battleship field condition like Ukraine. This is why Ukrainians have resorted to make their own custom drones. So they imported Chinese drone parts directly themselves and making their own drones. And Russians are doing the same. So from China's perspective, this is just normal trade. You know, they cannot control what people are doing with commercial drone parts, right? But this is what U.S. would label so-called dual use. I mean, at this point, anything is dual use. Battery could be dual use, right? And actually, those drone battery do come from China as well. China can say no, because China have all the cards. You know, for example, U.S. is still begging for China to relax on their export control on rare earth. We just have a recent. We just recently have an article confirmed by Wall Street Journal said the Chinese export control on rare earths now is really squeezing the U.S. defense industries, because now the export license that Chinese government so far have approved is only for the U.S. civilian sector, only for the U.S. selected U.S. car market, car companies for 6 months. And this does not cover the defense industries. There's a lot of rare earth that goes into weapon parts. Like for a Virginia class submarine, they use 4,700 kilos of rare earth for each sub, right? Wow. And they need a lot of rare earth, and China is now saying no, you can't have rare earth, no rare earth for you. And this is why Pentagon, they're scrambling right now. Now they're actually investing. Pentagon is investing now in the rare earth industry in United States. There's a rare earth mine called Mountain Pass mine in California, right next to New Reno, that used to be one of the biggest producer of rare earth back in the 1960s, when the United States was still the largest producer of rare earth. So Pentagon went to them, say, okay, I'm gonna put in like $380 million in your in your company, and I will guarantee you we contract. If you produce rare earth, we'll guarantee you sell no matter price. We will buy it. But the thing is, it's not as simple as digging rare earth out of the earth crust. The rare earth itself is not rare. There's rare earth in Ukraine, in Congo, in Australia, in the United States. The real choking point is refining. China refined about 90% of the rare earth into heat-resistant rare earth magnets.
Wow.
Those magnets is what's really important, because they're being used anything from car motors to F-35 to missiles. Because when especially in motor, it generates a lot of heat, and heat normally demagnetize magnets. But rare earth element has a property that they're heat resistant, so they can make heat resistant magnets. Now, all that technology for the last 40 years has been Chinese, because ever since the U.S. had moved the rare earth industry to China in the early 1980s, China not only mined the rare earth, but they also control all the refining. And for the last 40 years, any new development in the rare earth refining technologies, that has all been Chinese. In 1980s, Deng Xiaoping famously said, "Middle East has oil, we have rare earth." And now China, yes, it's a famous quote. He said, "Middle East has oil, but China has rare earth." So now, now they have really got the Pentagon by the balls. This is why China can afford to say no to U.S. Who are you kidding? 80% of the antibiotics in U.S. is produced in China. Who are you threatening here? Your hospitals depend on the supplies coming from China. All the medical plastics, they're also made in China. So whereas the Europeans, they have less leverage, much less leverage. This is why they can't really say. Go ahead.
No. Please finish. I'm sorry. I want to follow up with this.
Okay, this is the thing. If all these nations, Europe, India, all these other nations, instead of rushing to Washington trying to get a better deal, if they only had come together and coordinate action to how to deal with the U.S. tariff, they would be in a much stronger negotiation position.
Yes.
Instead, they allowed them, they individually went to Washington to beg for crumbs at the table. And you know what? Trump respects strength, right? This is why Trump actually said he respects Xi Jinping. Trump respects strength and power. He despises weakness. And when you go to Washington to beg for a better deal, you're not going to get that from Trump. This is Philippines. The Philippine President Marcos has done everything United States have asked, basically to serve as U.S. Ukraine in Asia Pacific against China, right? To be the front line for U.S. confrontation with China. But Marcos was only able to negotiate the tariff down 1% for the Philippines, from 20% to 19%. I mean, it's a joke. It's just sad. I mean, like, Trump does not respect weakness. He despises weakness and he respects strength. And all these nations, whether EU or India, I think they made a strategic mistake when they try to be the first in Washington to negotiate for a better deal. That you're not going to get it, and that's And then now they kind of have to swallow whatever Trump throw their way, and that's just sad. And especially for Europe, because Europe, they're already cut themselves off from cheap Russian gas. and now they have to rely on importing more expensive LNG from America. This is what United States wanted, and this is why they blow up the Nord Stream in the first place. So now they're going to antagonize China, one of their largest customer. I mean, Europe is committing economic suicide right now. They're committing economic suicide, and this is also because the European leadership don't really represent the European people. I mean, who elected von der Leyen? And there was no general European election to elect von der Leyen. It was like all those like 40 MPs in Brussels that elected her. It's all behind the scene.
They elected her again after the last European election, where there was obviously a change in the way that people were voting. Few things. One, you're right. It's like you can promise anything. It's like a marriage. I will be with you and love you forever. 4 years later, out here, I'm hooking up with the butler. The other thing, the rare earth minerals, it is, what a bizarre point of view. Like, they always make this argument that capitalists will sell you the rope that you use to hang them. It's like, you're not going to hang me, are you? Nope, I'm not going to hang you at all. And then you string the guy up as soon as he sells you the rope. Why do they think China would do that? Like, meaning, do they honestly, it is the height of ridiculousness to say, hey, Australia, hey, Philippines, hey, South Korea, hey, Japan, we need to know whether or not you're willing to go to war with China and die for the dignity of America. Oh, and by the way, China, we need your rare earth minerals so we can fight that war. Who would do that? That is so bizarre. Question on Iran. It's part of the reason that the U.S. didn't have the capability of supplying all of these weapons, A, bottlenecks, but B, also because they didn't have the rare earth minerals to supply to all of these theaters of conflict. Or do you know?
Well, Wall Street Journal also reported in the 12 days Israel-Iran war, Israel fired off 25% of the THAAD interceptor missiles ever produced by United States. Ever produced. And so there's no way they're gonna be able to replenish that supply anytime soon, right? I mean, like I mentioned before, for the entire fiscal year of 2025, US had planned to produce 12 that interceptor missiles, because those things are actually expensive. They cost somewhere between like 12 to 13 million dollars a pop, and that planned production for 12 missiles was before China put in the export control on the rare earth. So they're going to have even more problems to ramp up the production. And this also goes back to, the same thing, which is U.S. has hollowed out its manufacturing for so long, for 40 years. Now it's starting to bite the military-industrial complex in the ass. They can't keep up with naval buildup versus China. China, Pentagon says China has 231 times the shipbuilding capability than the United States. So if they're gonna lose any ships, good luck replacing them. And they don't have the kind of industrial capacity to really increase production for war that they wanted against China, because they need components from China. And so this is why China can, quote unquote, sit back and do nothing and win. It's a meme. China is actually not doing nothing. China has been doing everything to develop itself, to develop its own capability. And as for why United States handed China the ropes, is because rare earth mining was very polluting. So and it has the rare earth themselves, they don't sell for a lot of money. So it's very thin profit margin. So when the Wall Street did the calculation back in the 80s, like, we don't need this. let's offsource. Let's outsource our pollution to China. And at that time, China was desperately poor, so it's willing to do the literal dirty job of mining and refining the rare earth. But because the people think, oh, it's no problem. Now that we know what the problem is, and the Pentagon is now putting all this money, public-private partnership, now we're going to be able to build China independent supply chain. Well, it's not as simple, folks, because you have been hollow out the industry for 40 years.
Yep.
Chinese university offer courses in rare earth chemistry. None of the US universities offer any courses in rare earth chemistry because that industry doesn't exist anymore in the United
Right.
States. So you have a gap, 40-year gap of human capitals, of like, you don't have anybody who can work on this, who knows how things work, how to refine it into the rare earth. Not to mention the machines that you need for refining is from China. You need to get those from China as well. And the human capital, the engineers, you don't have the engineers who can do this anymore. They're all Chinese. So it's gonna take a long time. If you really want to do, I mean, it's still possible to do it, but I will give them. We're looking at least 10 to 15. If everything goes well. If everything goes well, at least 10 to 15 years before they can ramp up production, do actually the whole rare earth supply chain in United States. But what are you going to do in the meantime within this 10 to 15 years? What are you going to do with your military when you want to replenish your arsenal, which you have depleted in the proxy war in Ukraine, and again to help your buddy Israel? You have been depleted. NATO has reported their own arsenal now is being depleted to a dangerously low level.
Yes.
How are you going to replace those weapons if you don't have the material? When China says no rare earth for you, sorry, we know you want to use those weapons against us, so we're not going to give you the tools. What are you?
It's in Victory Park. All those burned up tanks and planes and APC vehicles or whatever the hell those things are called. All of those things are sitting in Moscow in a museum, just for the public to watch and laugh at. It's and yet they're still angling for war. Ain't it?
Yes.
Like, isn't that insane?
Yes. Well, because that's Jamar. There's jobs and careers at stake. You got to think about all those think tanks, all those think tankers whose their whole job, their whole existence is predicated on creating conflict, so they can justify the continued spending to pump the official defense budget up to northwards of more than $1 trillion, which in reality, we know it's way more than that, because all that money is going to Ukraine. That's not part of the official Pentagon budget. And so they're feeding a lot of people, they're keeping a lot of people employed. We can't lose those jobs. we can't lose those jobs, Jamar. We have to keep this racket going.
It's so pathetic. It's just so pathetic. It's like, hey, we're going to have a war.
And Jamar, you are talking from the perspective is like, okay, we gotta prepare for war to win. No. They're not. Never. There's never intention to win a war, Jamar. You have to understand that. Assange. The reason they lock up Assange is because Assange spoke the truth. He said, NATO, US, they're in Afghanistan. They're not in Afghanistan to win it. The whole point of Afghanistan, Iraq, these operations is to wash money from the taxpayer basis of Europe, of America, into the hands of a very small transnational security elite. That's all it is. It's just grift. It's this continued grift at the expense of everybody else. That's how our government is structured. I like to say the U.S. government is of the oligarchs, by the oligarchs, for the oligarchs. It's working perfectly. It's a feature, not a bug, Jamar. It's a feature, not a bug.
It's frustrating, Carl, because it's our tax dollars. And it's like Trump is increasing the military budget by $1 trillion and we're not in war. Think about that. Like, that's mind-blowing, right? And as you point out, that's not even including Ukraine. That's just a grift that he is effectively going with. And by the way, this has everything to do with BRICS. Like, this is not like it's not a bug that it's just so happened we're going to go after Russia, China, India, effectively everybody that Russia does business with. We are going to put 100% sanctions. I have been saying do it. I want to see him do it. I am super curious on what's going to happen when he does it.
Well, China already said, basically China essentially tell them to F off because China said, sorry, buying Russian oil that's our sovereign rights. We will not allow anybody to infringe our sovereign rights to buy goods from whoever we want. And so, and then China added, we need to remind you there's no winners in a trade war because they know what's the United States going to do. Are they going to bring back the 100% tariff like they did in May? And the whole point of the Scott Bessent chasing Chinese vice premier all the way to Europe to negotiate a deal is to avoid the 100% tariff. Now they're going to voluntarily put the 100% tariff again. China knows Trump is bluffing. They're not buying. And interestingly, right now India is also taking a tough line because United States have been putting the screw on India for also purchasing the Russian oil, and India also said, no, we're going to continue to buy Russian oil. That's our sovereign rights. You cannot impinge on that. So that's, I would argue, that's the only way to deal with United States. You don't appease the bullies. If you appease the bully will keep on bullying you. They're going to make it more difficult. The best way to deal with the bully is to break his nose, make him bleed a little bit. Then he will back off. And this is why I think if the Europeans and Indians and all these nations had just come together and had a coordinated action to deal with the Trump tariff. By the way, I do think Trump himself have a different motivation for the tariff than possibly the U.S.
What do you think it is?
Look, man, if you look at Trump, his speeches since 1980s, he's really about, he just want everybody to pay. He want everybody to pay for the U.S. empire, to be the privilege of being in the U.S. empire. He has been complaining about the Japanese, about the Europeans since the 1980s. Now that he's president, he's finally get to do it for real. And if you look at what the tariff really, this is why he's slapping tariff on everybody. Not just against the selected official enemy. He's slapping tariff against everybody. And if you look at what tariff really is, of course these countries are not paying tariff. It's American importers.
Yeah, we pay it.
Are paying the tariff. So, and then you get passed down to consumers. So essentially, tariff is a tax, right? It's a tax, and this is what's Trump's motivation really is. He's increasing the tax, but the Trump base is too stupid to realize it. They still think they voted Trump in to cut taxes. No. He just increased tax on all of us with this tariff action. And they're cheering him up for that. It's like, oh yeah, makes the Chinese pay the tariff. The Chinese is like, okay, well, we don't care what you do after you bought our goods at our specified price. Whether you pay tariff or don't, that's your problem. It's American importers have to deal with that, and American consumers have to deal with that.